Michael Schumacher emerged in front both times, up onto the banking for the last time, up to receive the cheers of this enormous crowd in Indianapolis for the last time, and Michael Schumacher as they go side by side across the line. Who's going to win this Grand Prix? It's a mystery. It's Michael Schumacher. Michael Schumacher.
Nice to drive, but if you make a little mistake, yeah, you get another chance not far away, but you don't have many corners to try and make up any lap time either, so you can get punished for those mistakes as well.
Yeah, well, they've got the pop music playing around the circuit from the DJ, but when I used to drive this circuit, I used to think of the sound of music, operatic, as you say, you could really get the appreciation of the scenery and the forests around you.
You didn't have the Jos Verstappen Barmy Army in.
No, that's true. That is absolutely true. A different era, and thankfully for me, one that was easier to be competitive in. This season has just been incredibly close, but I couldn't help but notice that practice in free practice 3, the times were, what, second and a half covered the entire grid in that session. I guess Hadjar with the outlier, having had his spin, but it's not as tight around here as I was predicting coming to the shortest lap time track on the calendar.
Yeah, we have seen previously under 0.8 of a second covered all 20 cars in Q1 here last year, and that's what DC was expecting, Jody.
Well, I think that's the benchmark. I still think we're going to get, if there's more than a second separating all the cars at the end of Q1, then either someone's had a shocker or someone's had an amazing lap, because it shouldn't be more than a second separating the whole field. Alpine have been struggling a little bit. We have seen Franco Colapinto, even Pierre Gasly, fighting the car. I think they're going to be a team that are going to be just keen to make Q2 at this rate. On the other end, McLaren and Lando Norris particularly have been flying. So that's been your field spread largely so far. But it is generally, it's a racetrack of fine margins, unless you're Max Verstappen in 2024 and you can blow the competition out the water.
Yeah, I love that spreading of love from the fan there, holding up the banner, I love you, Piastri, as she wears a Ferrari t-shirt.
Yeah, hedge your bets. Hedge your bets.
There's more of that coming in Formula One, isn't there?
Yeah, it's
hide
fantastic.
the banner or hide the t-shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, someone says I'm your biggest fan as they stand there wearing an outfit of a team you've never driven for.
Do you remember the chap in Japan last year that was full Ferrari kit and then unzipped his jacket and he went full Aston Martin kit straight after?
Yep, it might be a wise choice. Might be a wise choice. Ferrari brought a new floor. They're trying to close the gap to the front. Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, 4th and 5th. Leclerc ahead of Hamilton in final practice. And it was Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, Max Verstappen, separated by 0.2 of a second. They are the top 3 in the World Championship going into this 11th race of the year. Oscar Piastri at 198 points, Lando Norris on 176, Max Verstappen on 155. DC, this is a Lando Norris special circuit. He's always had good form here, even when the McLaren hasn't been as competitive as it is in 2025. Would you say this is a must-win weekend for the British driver?
Yeah, I think so. I think off the back of Canada, although he's handled turning that page and closing that chapter of disappointment extremely well, it may actually have been the sort of the low of the season that he needed psychologically to sort of bounce back. We know he's been very open about the fact that he sort of has a roller coaster of emotions as he continues through his career. But I feel this is a track that suits him. Every time he's gone out, he's gone to the top of the times pretty much. And if he can be flawless on his lap, seems like an obvious statement, but that's been the thing that's got in the way of his previous qualifying sessions. I don't think he needs to approach this with a 100% mindset. I think 99.9 will be enough to get him on the pole.
And that is the question, though, Jolien. Can he find 99.9? Because he was rapid in FP2, he was rapid in FP3, he topped the session in FP3, but there was a mistake on a final push run.
He's barely been off the top spot when he's been in the car. He sat out FP1 for Alex Dunn, the F2 Championship leader. Dunn did a good job actually in his car, was up in the top 4 as well. But then since Lando's been in it, he's been quick and generally was consistent, apart from that last set of tyres he put on in practice earlier on, where he did one lap that was quickest by more than a tenth over the field, but 2 laps where he made little mistakes as well. And that's exactly what we've seen from Lando so far this season. He is generally very solid and very quick through Q1 and Q2, but on too many occasions in Q3, when it's all about finding that last tenth of a second and the places really matter, he's been making a few mistakes. I agree, DC. I think he's had the measure of the rest of the field so far this weekend. It's about putting a clean lap in the board and finding that rhythm for him, but he's not finding it easy. And the more that you make the mistakes, the more you start thinking about potentially making a mistake as well, and you're more likely to make the mistake.
Yeah, it's ironic that actually, isn't it? It's a sort of, I guess, racing driver equivalent of the yips in golf. The more you think about not sort of missing the putt, and you come up short. And you should never miss a golf putt by being short. If you're going to miss, be long.
I can tell you we'll get underway in a few moments' time after this delay to the qualifying hour. In the last couple of years, it's been a sprint format for Formula One. But we're back to the traditional 3 hours of practice before that green light at the end of the pit lane.
What's the racing equivalent of going short in a golf putt? Is that just underdriving a lap? You want to at least go long, give it the beans, and if you overcook it somewhere, you've blown it in the bells and whistles way. Yeah,
I think it must be. It must be you just brake too early, because once there's so much lap time in braking, as we both know, that if you give away that performance, it's very difficult to out-accelerate anyone, given that the engine performances are all within small margins. And as they get ready to go out the slightly unusual pit lane, in that you've got to climb up to what feels like a very, very tight Monaco. Gerhard Berger once ended up crashing in the pit wall on the exit, and I mentioned that because just to sort of cover myself for crashing into the pit wall on the entry in Adelaide. It can happen to anybody at any time.
We switched to Melbourne, and so that clip rarely gets replayed.
It's gone from the archives, isn't it? Didn't someone in F2 crash on the pit?
Yeah, Artem Markelov crashed there in 2016 on a typically dramatic day in the second tier. We've had another one of those, and we do have a green light at the end of the pit lane. Qualifying is underway. We're going to lose the 5 slowest drivers from this session. If you're one of our newer viewers, that's the format for Q1. We'll do the same thing in Q2. We'll have a top 10 shootout to organise the positions on the grid, and it has been a championship defined by who's able to take pole position, and if you can get a good opening lap, if you can execute the pit stops. Track position has been king this year in Formula One, but this is a glorious circuit for overtaking. What a battle we had here between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen 1 year ago, which opened the door for George Russell, who is our most recent winner. Started the weekend really well, George Russell, on a roll, having taken his first win of the season, but the Mercedes pace has slipped back. One thing that we have seen, though, is a resurgent weekend from this man, Lance Stroll, who is chasing just a second Q3 appearance of the year. He has been, so far this weekend, the lead Aston Martin in practice.
Well, you could think about this throwing forward to 26 as he starts his lap. An Adrian Newey designed Honda in 26 could well be the car of the season, and if Fernando eventually peaks and starts to go off form, we could be at this point of the season next year with Lance Stroll leading the World Championship. so maybe he's starting to sort of finally focus his mind on that as he comes off of Ford, just a small bit of oversteer as he unleashed the 1,000 horsepower in these 2 corners here. Absolutely fantastic bit of understeer mid-corner. You saw that increase of lock. And here it would be almost 5G in qualifying when they get to the final part. That's a huge amount of load, Jolene, which if you can try and explain to our audience what that feels like on your head and neck.
I feel the whole experience of driving through these fast corners quickly, one after another, is like a roller coaster that you're in charge of. It's so much that's going on. And Lance completes a lap. Maybe after 8.5 years, he's finally finding his feet in Formula One, thinking about that championship-winning season next year, DC.
Yeah, well, it could well be, but in the here and now, well, Carlos Sainz is going to be hoping for better form and quality. Both the Williams not as sort of settled and dialed into this racetrack as we've seen at some of the other tracks, so it's been somewhat challenging. And Ollie Behrman here has been pretty solid through free practice, so continuing his impressive season with Haas.
I can tell you, we're not allowed to run Adelaide 1995 when DC hit the pit wall and the entrance. If Lance Stroll's leading the World Championship this time next year, you'll be hearing that clip again and again and again on the broadcast. It's Esteban Ocon from Alex Albon, then Lance Stroll, who we were talking about, Carlos Sainz, Pierre Gasly, Ollie Behrman and Franco Colapinto. The news for Franco Colapinto coming into this weekend is that he will have his time in that car extended. That was the good news for him. The bad news is it's by a race-by-race basis. So he will be assessed at the end of every weekend, which is a difficult position for any driver to be in.
Yeah, but don't you feel that that's kind of always the case? You know, if a driver's not performing, then no team is going to sort of stand on the contract. If you're there sort of within a tenth or two of your teammate, but if you're massively away, which he isn't, of course, then I wouldn't be overly worried about the whole race-by-race thing, because you've got to prove yourself every weekend.
I agree with your sentiment, but bearing in mind they've already axed one driver this year. He's only come in, and this is only his 5th race with the team. And you see it across the board. There are various drivers that are struggling a little bit. Not many teammates are on an equal footing. McLaren are maybe one of them. Williams are maybe another. But when you look across the rest of the field, there's a bit of a split. But they've all got the security that they should be there at least half the year. And even if they're going to be beaten again, if you're Liam Lawson or Bortoletto, who's yet to score a point. He knows that he's there with a bit of security, whereas Franco Colapinto coming in and it being articulated that you're on a race by race now, I think that's a horrible position.
Well, you know what, Julian? This is the father in you coming out. You go and have a child, and now you're going all fatherly. As Mark Webber, my old teammate at Red Bull, said, Formula One isn't a finishing school. You get your opportunity. If you're a 17-year-old Max, you go and win your first race in the Red Bull. If you're a Lewis Hamilton going toe-to-toe with Fernando Alonso, a world champion, you finish equal with him on points in that season. I am going to go the other way, despite being a father too, and say you've got to prove yourself.
Well, that's the challenge. Colapinto is coming off the back of his best weekend of the season. He looked a lot more competitive, a lot more like the Colapinto of 2024 than the driver that we'd seen in the opening races for Alpine, so he's looking to carry that momentum through. Talking of momentum around this racetrack, you're looking at the master of the Red Bull Ring. 5 times a winner here, Max Verstappen. He was 3rd fastest in practice earlier on, and he is chasing today pole position number 6 in a row around this configuration.
Little juggle of the wheel for Max coming in towards turn 4. So DC mentioned it's about having a good front end around their circuit generally. Certainly don't want to be washing wide. Is that going to be traffic? No, it clears out of the way. The Saubers, Bortoletto, as Verstappen comes through. The limitation then, once you get rid of the understeer, is making sure you got the rear in control on the way into some of these big stops as Max comes through and blitzes the rest of the field so far.
You know, one thing I've just realised as we joined that onboard, they've obviously got one of those privacy screens on the dashboard, because some of the cars you can actually see some of the vital information. I know at the night races it's even more visible, but the screen on the steering of the Red Bull was completely blank, as we see a lock-up and going wide there, just skimming the gravel at down into turn 4. That's where we saw, as you mentioned, Julian, the little working of the wheel from Max Verstappen. So is that a case of the gusting winds? There was a tailwind there earlier, so just trying to look out the comm box. Yeah,
line coming through the final 2 corners. You really can't go over track limits there unless you're in the gravel too. And Antonelli comes through and goes 4th. We had said, hadn't we? Yeah, turn 4 is normally it's a place where you can make a lot of mistakes. It's a difficult braking zone, but it has been quiet until now. But we've seen Oscar a few times this weekend already look like he's struggling slightly for that consistency he usually finds.
This is on board with Carlos Sainz, who had gone early, dips a wheel on the gravel, looking for the compliance from the car that just is not there, and he can only climb to 13th position. Alex Albon replaces him in that spot. Sainz trying to avoid a 3rd Q1 exit in a row. It's been a couple of years since he'd had that before. He has managed as high as P6 on the grid so far this year. The order with 9 minutes to go is Lando Norris ahead of Max Verstappen, and it's Lewis Hamilton, and Kimi Antonelli is ahead of Hadjar, Leclerc, Russell, Tsunoda, Lawson and Hulkenberg, who complete the top 10. This is Fernando Alonso getting very close to inspecting that gravel track.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about this circuit, that there is gravel for consequence, and we had the ridiculous situation in the past where there was so many track infringements. Now, I know it does put gravel onto the track, and it's very frustrating, as you know, Julian, if you come round and there is a bit of gravel on the exit, but largely speaking, as long as there's no gravel on the apex, it's an inconvenience rather than a major time loss, and it does mean the drivers absolutely drive to the consequence of that gravel on the outside.
It's the best way, having a natural deterrent there on the outside. I do think maybe Fernando was a bit unlucky there, already on the limit of grip, and then finding Piastri's gravel on the outside of 4, so that cost him slightly there. But we'll see it in other places around the calendar. Monza, you can often brush a bit of gravel round to the exit of La Roggia chicane. It happens, and it's part of racing, really. Sometimes you can get slightly unlucky with it, but it is the best way of making sure the drivers stay within the confines of the circuit, which has been a nightmare in the past around this place. Interestingly, the Alpines and the Aston Martins have both gone for a second set of tyres already. This is usually a gambit played when you think you're not going to make Q2. Throw everything at Q1. And I thought Aston Martin might be looking pretty safe to make it through almost to Q3. But right now, they're not having a good time of it as Gasly uses that new set and jumps up to 6th.
Yeah, if you're going to go for a second set of tyres, you have to make use of the new rubber. Gasly has done so. He's gone to P6, Colapinto in P12, and still vulnerable. 7 minutes to go. And we've now seen Oscar Piastri, after that difficulty on the first lap, go into second position, 0.3 of a second behind his team.
Yeah, I think that's quite telling. It just again shows that Norris has got confidence. I'd be surprised if it's still 0.3 once we get into the final part of qualifying. But that is, you just look where everyone else is relative to Norris. Norris is confident. He's gone out there and went, bang, I'll have a lap just to get myself warmed up. And what a lap that was.
He's doing it every set of tyres. Look at the gap to the field. Even with Piastri finding that pace, he's absolutely mullered the rest of the field. This is a really fired up, fine-tuned Lando Norris that we're seeing so far this weekend. But we haven't got to Q3 yet. That's the uncharted territory for him this weekend. The rest of it, he is absolutely nailing this.
Do you think it's a case of his engineer and everyone in the garage not mentioning the fact it's Q3?
Just another Q1 session coming up, Lando.
Yeah, just another run.
Well, there are so many interesting narratives as we go through into the final stages of Q1 and Q2. The margins will be tight, so your best lap at this moment is required. Hulkenberg was struggling to turn the car from all of the sessions, really. Friday practice yesterday looked slightly better for him in FP3, but the star for Sauber is the man with no points so far. But this is a circuit that carries great memories for the young Brazilian. And there's another one, up to 5th. The driver who scored all the points for Sauber this year is Hulkenberg. Bortoleto got his first F2 win around this circuit on the way to the title last year. P5, he's been the leading driver for Sauber so far this weekend.
Yeah, super impressive, almost impressive as his team principals, or what, he's actually the CEO, isn't he, of the business. His hair, he looks like he's had a small electric shock, doesn't he? And,
I'll let you tell him that.
Yes,
DC.
yes, I will. But he forever hides his emotions, but he's got to be happy with that as an opening time. And Bortoleto has just been at one with this racetrack all weekend.
Yeah, he's absolutely on fire, isn't he? I want to see a Bortoleto Q3 if he can keep this sort of form going. Sainz was well out of shape coming through turn 4, so Albon is flying. This is new tyres for Williams. They've gone early to try and make it through. They're another team under pressure, but Sainz, with that big mistake, may not be about to rise as much as he wants here.
Started as high as 3rd on the grid, but you can tell from the trackside cameras that Sainz is not getting on with that car around the racetrack. Sainz brushing the gravel on the exit of turn 6. Alex Albon with a lap time good enough for P5.
So Sainz has got time to go again, if he's got fuel to go again, which I imagine he has, to try and give Williams, they've got the time to do it, so give them a buffer to make amends for this mistake that we're going to see. Steering a little bit in and then, whoa.
That's a surprising one, because he'd done the difficult thing of actually reaching the apex. He didn't seem to have a massive amount of steering lock on, suggesting understeer into that oversteer moment, but he just seemed to be surprised by lack of traction and the amount of power.
It's a long corner, that, isn't it? There's a lot going on, breaking down the hill, getting to that apex, and then the car just naturally wants to push on towards that outside curve. But you want to get on the gas and head to this point, turn 6. It's like Albon's ran wide over a curve as well. And he's at least dug out a brilliant lap to go 5th, so they can check the car for damage. He could probably pit now, and he's done enough. But Sainz will certainly have to go and find a load more time if he's got the fuel for a second lap, but he pits.
Two Astons are the surprise, sitting down there in 18th and 20th right now, so their opening laps not enough. So let us see if they can, in the dying minutes of this first part of qualifying, pull a lap. Also Behrman, I think he was looking better than his current 19th place through free practice.
So is Sainz going to get back out? This will have to be a splash and dash for the Williams man who's just come back in. New set of tyres on and the quickest of refuels. It's a short lap, so there's a little bit of time, but this is a sketchy one for Sainz and Williams, who will have to improve to get through.
Okay, it is step forward time at the Red Bull Ring. Esteban Ocon in the Haas, looking for a progression. The season has been boom and bust. It has been Q3 appearances and Q1 exits. He's looking right now at a Q1 exit. We are driver view, the visor cam, heading to turn number 3. We clear the traffic and it's 17th position. You must find an improvement at this stage, and we're expecting the whole field to be covered by about a second. He's outside of that second window. There are 2 minutes to go in the session. He's one of 5 drivers in the drop zone.
It's not a good first sector for Ocon. No improvement. Again, washing wide of that curb at turn 4. The first sector is just one corner, so it's easy to look like an average lap. But it's at this point where it can really come alive now. You're through all the slow speed. He's wide, coming out of 6, fighting the car there. Is not hunky-dory, this for Ocon. He's going to have to be squeaky clean in the final couple of turns.
Yeah, he's gone personal best in that middle sector, but as you say, it is fingertip stuff. Can he keep it all nice and neat? You've got to drop it into that entry, into that apex curb, avoiding the sausage, and it's enough to get him through.
13th position, under pressure, ahead of Tsunoda, ahead of Colapinto. Sainz and Albon are on outlaps.
Yeah, we just saw Sainz leaving the pits there, I think, alongside the slow lap now of Esteban Ocon. So Sainz will have to hurry round, but he's back out for one final attempt.
So Norris went to the top of the times with a new best time in between, but we're looking at the bottom 5, and the 10th best qualifier of the season is currently in 20th position. Fernando Alonso needs a lap time. He's finding a lap time as he tries to coax his Aston Martin through on another new set of tyres. They've used 3 in the first part of qualifying. Final corner, the 10th and final corner of the racetrack. Alonso comes across the line and finds P8.
George Russell is 15th and on an outlap too, so the Mercedes man might be well under pressure here with a few more drivers trying to improve. Tsunoda's down in the drop zone. He's out there and improving, but don't think it's enough for Yuki.
It's not. And can he keep it going? Can he do a double push?
This is a nervous moment then for George Russell. So much talk of his contract status coming into this weekend. Are we going to see a replacement at Mercedes? Max Verstappen coming in next year. That's what all the chat has been about.
Tsunoda's done. He's on a slow lap next to Russell there. So Tsunoda was on a flying lap, didn't find a big improvement, and he's out in Q1, 17th place at best.
And Gasly jumps up to 4th position. Sainz has got a personal best. Colapinto demotes George Russell to the drop zone. And now Colapinto's improvement means that Russell needs to find something at the circuit where he won last year. He needs the improvement as Hadjar goes to P5, and Russell is down not on the P16 time. That's compared to Lando Norris. He is on for personal best in the first sector. No improvement in the middle of the lap. Russell up against the clock here, facing pressure he would not have expected. His teammate is in 10th. Russell hangs on to it. Goes to the line and finds the 11th fastest time. It's not the easiest lap for him, but it's enough to progress him through. Stroll is in the drop zone along with Ocon. Tsunoda is done. Sainz is the driver fighting. Hulkenberg is in 20th position, and Sainz is only 19th. And the driver who spent years getting out of Q1 without even thinking about it has 3 Q1 exits in a row.
Well, we've got that 1 second spread, so the grid is closer, but there are some surprises there. Sainz clearly was disappointed. Hulkenberg, normally very good at finding a lap in quali, is looking at his teammate down in 8th place.
Look at the gap. Look at the gap. 9/10 of a second from first to last.
Even tighter than that from Tsunoda upwards.
Mate, I didn't have any front grip, bro.
5th, Tsunoda 18th. It's so uncomfortable for the Red Bull second driver, whoever it is. It's tiny margins. It's 3/10 from Yuki to Liam Lawson in 3rd. It's 3/10, separating 15 positions. It's absolutely bonkers. But you've got to define it somehow, and Tsunoda's lack of grip there is going to mean he's jumping out of the car and out of this. Lance Stroll's a shock to me. Aston Martin generally not finding the pace. Stroll's been flying this weekend, and he's out in 16th.
Well, cue the song from Dizzy Rascal, Bonkers. It is indeed absolutely bonkers how close Formula One is. And 3/10 is so tight.
There's damage in the car for sure. Car is undrivable. But when I say undrivable, is pulling on the brake in. No loading of speed. Undrivable.
Well, Carlos Sainz with an unhappy debrief on the radio. Have to say, the lap that we saw, there was an error at turn 4, there was an error at the exit of 6, there was an error on the exit of 9. He was soaring away at the steering wheel.
So he's missed just turning a little bit to 6, so he's had just a moment of understeer, but then it's gone straight into that oversteer you've seen all the way through 6 and then 7. Now we're getting into the high speeds. This way he's saying there's no load, and there's just not actually. I think there is something wrong with that car. There's no way the tail should be wagging like that. It's a lot of work he's having to put in, and this should be now a finely poised Formula 1 car. Yeah,
it's more like a sort of eager puppy when you come home late from the pub, isn't it? The wagging of the rear end of that car, that is super uncomfortable.
Alex Albon made it through in 9th position. Carlos Sainz, that looked beyond just a balance issue. That did indeed look like something was wrong with the Williams there, because he was soaring away on both runs. Nothing he could do. And it's Stroll, Ocon, Tsunoda, Sainz and Hülkenberg, the 5 to fall. It now means it's only 6-5 to Hülkenberg in the qualifying head-to-head. I think if you'd said at the start of the year Bortoleto will out-qualify Nico Hülkenberg 5 times up against a proven performer over 1 lap, Bortoleto would have been delighted with that. But he's made it through. He was another star of practice, always in the top 10. Stroll, who's run as high as 4th so far this weekend, is out. But Bortoleto, he is still fighting. Let's send it to the paddock with some more analysis now with Alex and Davide.
Yes, guys, 2 big scalps out in that one, Davide. Yuki Tsunoda without the balance, but also Carlos Sainz, really bizarre. A sequence of events which started with that, what appeared to be an error, down into turn 4 on his penultimate flying lap.
Yeah, in exit, he lost the car. Looks at it, take the apex, goes on throttle and lost the rear. You lose a lot of time. He lost the chance to improve that lap and then forcing to have a last pit stop and then try again, right on the checkered flag. You have a lot of pressure, and then seems that his car was not working at all.
So Williams have thrown another set of tyres at it then, but they get him back out on the racetrack, and you wonder if that was originally the plan. Because, you know, when you look at the lap that Sainz eventually does here, he eventually throws away, he doesn't look like he has the grip and balance underneath him. When they send him back out of the pit lane, it's a little bit of a rush down at Williams. They get him back out there. He only just crosses the line in time on this set of soft tyres. Let's have a look at this lap then that Sainz eventually ditches in the Williams.
Already in the first sector, didn't start very well because didn't improve his sector and was crucial for him. Seems that he opened the line very well. He missed the apex a bit, and then on the surcharge curb at the exit, you lose speed and you lose all the speed going up to the hill.
Yeah, a little wide of the apex in turn 1, gets the toe. And it arcs down to the apex of turn 3 a little bit early maybe for Sainz, but it is just so close. We've seen the distance back to Yuki Tsunoda, the other major driver out, only 3/10 from Liam Lawson up in the higher reaches of the session. The car just has no grip, though, Davide, does it, in this phase?
Struggling in the exit, Yuzu controlling the steering wheel, and then fast section in the left. Oh, lost a bit the rear, and then, controlling the car every time and opening the light. Seems that he was forced to low down the minimum speed in the center of the corner. If no, he was losing every time the rear grip.
Yeah, I think in error, fundamental issue. That's very much finished for Sainz. He knows it, gets out of the throttle, I think, before the line. But in any case, not the best session for Sainz, who's been having a bit more of a difficult weekend, along with Alex Albon after being in the higher reaches back in FP1. Both he and Tsunoda will be very disappointed to be out in the first phase of qualifying.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Davide. Time to line the cars up at the end of the pit lane. We await a green light in the second part of qualifying. Q2 about to get underway. Charles Leclerc super key, and he's at the end of the pit lane with his teammate Lewis Hamilton. 15 remain in the qualifying.
Wonder what odds you'd have got for the end of Q1 to see 2 Racing Bulls and an Alpine in the top 5. Add in
excellent ones.
Add in Bortoleto in the top 10, Albon in the Williams in the top 10. Half the top 10 was made up of drivers that you'd have thought might struggle to make it out of Q1.
So what that says to me, or reinforces to me, is this circuit is about balance rather than overall grip. I know very often the two things go hand in hand, but if you've got balance, you've got confidence. And quite clearly, when we joined that onboard with Carlos Sainz, the balance, it was trying to throw itself towards the barriers every time he turned in.
Yeah, and then you can't. Once you have one of those moments, you're second-guessing the next one. And so I think the first one looked like it was turn 4 on the exit, where he'd already had the big slide on the previous set of tyres. the start of that didn't look great either. But then you get to turn 6, the car's going again, and then how do you turn it in for 7 immediately after, and 9, and it's just getting worse and worse. Meanwhile, you know the lap time is going down the drain as well. So tough one for Sainz, but there must be something that's gone awry on the car.
Yeah, Formula One engineering is the very highest of standards, but by the very definition of tolerances, there are often just tiny differences when you build up these front wings or these huge floors. If you're just out fractionally, then it can change fundamentally whether the car dials in and gives you confidence, or whether, as we saw there, it put him a few tenths away. Because even though the lap looks spectacular, the actual, and it's not been a great quali for him, he's not that far away in lap time terms.
No, it is a rapid lap here up against the stopwatch, and it's one that Charles Leclerc is attempting. Chose to go very early. He's had multiple moments off the road in practice so far this weekend, but always seems to bring his best for qualifying. 26 times he's been on pole in Formula One. He's the winner of this race back in 2022. And he's looking to try and reassert dominance in the qualifying head-to-head. Last couple of Grand Prix, he started behind Lewis Hamilton.
2 Ferraris straight out there at the start of this Q2, so you've got Leclerc, and 6 seconds behind him you've got Hamilton, so that's a distant slipstream for Hamilton that you can sometimes see drivers take at this circuit, because there are decent full throttle sections that you can take the benefit on the straight. You're then going to take the pain through some of these corners, not having perfect airflow over your car, as you see nose cam with Hamilton in the top left.
Yeah, Hamilton, a couple of kilometers an hour, quicker than Leclerc in the speed trap in that first sector, a couple of tenths faster as well. So let's see how the rest of their laps have unfolded.
So it's natural that Hamilton then is the fastest in the first sector, where there's basically 2 straights and 1 corner, the one you're looking at there, and then Leclerc's a bit quicker in the middle, where you're into more of the corners, and the final sector's the fast stuff as well, and Leclerc once again 1 tenth quicker, and overall a couple of tenths to the good on that lap.
Charles Leclerc finds himself ahead of Lewis Hamilton. They chose to go early. Max Verstappen in your picture in the garage. He does not have his usual race engineer. GP not in Austria. Simon Rennie called back to that role, a role he performed race engineer for Daniel Ricciardo and Mark Webber with the Red Bull team. A hugely experienced race engineer, but DC still a different race engineer for Max Verstappen to get used to.
Yeah, but he made the comments in the press over the course of the weekend. He's used to working with them when he goes to the simulator. As we know, Max probably spends more hours gaming than any other driver in the pit lane. And of course the Formula One full-size simulators, it's not a game, it's serious, but it does mean that he's got a rapport, he's got an understanding. So not as big a change as like Lewis Hamilton going to Ferrari and having a completely different group of engineers that he's never worked with before.
Yeah, it's a very good distinction to make. Simon Rennie is in charge of the simulator program back at the Red Bull factory in Milton Keynes in the UK. Next week, the British Grand Prix. This week, the Austrian Grand Prix, where Max Verstappen has triumphed 5 times around this circuit in the past. We're looking at the difference in sectors 1, 2 and 3. Antonelli very quick in what is essentially turn 1, and then a couple of straights to connect it. And then we get into the greater tests around the rest of the circuit. 10 minutes to go. Alex Albon's gone out there early as well to post the time. Everyone else is on an outlap.
It was amazingly clean in Q1, wasn't it? 20 cars out on circuit, and this is typically a track where you'd expect a level of complaint on the radio of impeding, but everyone's been very respectful so far, and everyone got their laps in as well at the end of the session. Sainz would be close, and normally you get the train of cars which are coming out now with 10 minutes to go. You get that with a couple of minutes to go and some shenanigans, but so far it's been a very clean session. Just the Ferraris and Albon going early, but they've been on the used tyre as well for the start of this one.
So under 10 minutes to go, push laps beginning to be completed. It's a really strong end of the session for the Racing Bulls. Isaac Hadjar moving on, and he has had a great rookie season so far. 7-1 up in the head-to-head up against his teammate Liam Lawson since they've been paired. Yuki Tsunoda started the year in this car, put it P5 on the grid in Melbourne, got sent to the second Red Bull seat, and he cannot get that car to work in the way that Max Verstappen can, but then again, that's been true of many a talented driver. Sonoda is out, the two Racing Bull drivers are through. They're both attacking the racetrack at this moment. After a tough Canada where they didn't have the balance across the entirety of the Canadian Grand Prix. This is a circuit that Lawson and Hadjar know from Formula 2. And it was very, very promising in Q1. Can they deliver as we go through the qualifying hour? We're going to finish the lap with Hadjar first. 10th and final turn around the racetrack that runs to 2.6 miles. And Hadjar goes ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Hadjar, with that new set of soft tyres, moves ahead of the Ferrari on the slightly older rubber, and Lawson in a straight fight. That's that time. The driver who's only been ahead of Hadjar once on the grid all year long, he's currently the fastest.
Yeah, you've got to say Hadjar has been super impressive in his debut in Formula 1, and it slightly makes you worry for Liam Lawson's future, but if he can continue the form he's just shown with that lap over the rest of the weekend, people have short memories, don't they? You're as good as your last race, your last qualifying.
Yeah, we saw that with the excellent FP1 performance from Alex Dunn, a driver who didn't have the easiest time of it in Formula 3 last year, twice on the podium and not in the top 10 of the championship. He was the championship leader coming into this round in Formula 2, and he was P4 at the start. We're on board now, Vice Cam, with Max Verstappen.
New tyres for Verstappen on this lap as well. The McLarens are out there on new boots as well, and he goes top. They're only a tenth and a half up on Lawson, so not clear of the Racing Bulls by much. George Russell on a decent flyer, and then you can see Oscar Piastri now with the fastest first sector as both McLarens get going into Q2.
I think tellingly, as we were on board with Verstappen and he dipped in through the apex of turn 10, they get a lot of steering lock on the car. It's not unusual to get a sort of little push of understeer as the circuit drops away, but I just wonder if that front axle's working well enough for him to work his magic.
Across the line we go with Oscar Piastri for the fastest time by half a second. The second part of qualifying, Lando Norris is a few seconds back. Fastest middle sector of anyone so far. This is the sound of turn 9, named for Jochen Rindt. Last corner of the racetrack complete. Lando Norris stacks up against Piastri, and there's a tenth and a half in it between the two McLarens.
So Norris once again able to find that 10th over Piastri, once again out on track at the same time on a new tyre into Q2, and the same form guide is working. The McLaren's clear of the rest. Leclerc comes through now on a new tyre and does a reasonable lap. So does Hamilton just behind, the two of them separated by almost nothing, both ahead of Verstappen and looking okay. But look at the gap to the McLarens, and once again Norris with a 10th margin over Piastri.
Car is completely undrivable. I have no grip. It's even what I said before.
Okay, understood.
I don't even know what to say. Like, I have no grip, low speed, medium speed, high speed.
All of the above for Max Verstappen, DC. One of the great traits of that race team is improving its car across the course of a weekend.
Yeah, it's just not working for him. I guess on the positive, he doesn't talk about curb strikes or riding, as we see what it was like from inside the cockpit there, dropped it down into the apex at 4. And
Car is completely undrivable. I have no grip. It's even what I said before.
Okay, understood.
I don't even know what to say. Like, I have no grip, low speed, medium speed, high speed.
All of the above for Max Verstappen, DC. One of the great traits of that race.
Car is completely undrivable. I have no grip. It's even what I said before.
Okay, understood.
I don't even know what to say. Like, I have no grip, low speed, medium speed.
I saw that earlier in the year in Japan, and with the track temperature at 46.8, Lewis Hamilton has run over the grass, and the man who's won here just the one time around Austria, quite literally on fire around the final corner. At least the grass is, and they have to put that out before we get the green flag flying once again.
It's sort of done the cornering out of turn 10, and then you try and find the shortest, the cleanest line to the timing line at the end there, and just drop that wheel. As soon as he did, it just dragged him out wide and into the scene of the fire now. So probably good news for anyone that needed to find something in the garage, maybe Max Verstappen particularly here. I wonder if for Max that's normally a tyre related issue where you go out and you just feel no grip, you're not getting your soft tyres into the right working window. Could it be outlap prep? Could it be the way you're attacking in the first couple of corners and the tyres coming to you there. You know, there are various things that Red Bull will look at, but if you're just not feeling grip across the board, then it's a very short outlap as well. It's only a 64-second flyer, so from going out the pits to putting one in, you're only looking at about 90 seconds. There's a lot of work you need to do to get the energy into the tyre, but not kill it for the end of the lap where you're scrabbling on the rears.
So this is a pause in proceedings to put the fire out and a chance for all of the drivers to make the last changes possible. Lewis Hamilton in fourth at the moment. After that, you do get... So what causes this is the titanium sparks from the underside of the car set fire to the grass, and we saw it earlier in the year. And it has been, since Thursday, glorious weather around this racetrack, at least in the running on circuit. Track temperature is 46 degrees, air temperature is 27.
It's a pretty convenient time for the red flag to fly. I think the only driver that was on a flying lap as it came out was Alex Albon, who would put on a new set of softs and was just winding it up. So he's going to lose that set of soft tyres and have to just get on with it on another set to try and get the Williams into the top 10. But everyone else was either in the pits or returning. So they'll just go out. We've now got a 5-minute, 42-second shootout for Q3. It's going to be a busy old track when we get going again. Very settled family stand, isn't it?
Let's get some analysis now on the quick laps from Alex and Davide.
Yes, guys, while they're getting a hosepipe down there to turn 10, I thought we'd have a look at this lap for Max Verstappen, where the car was undrivable, in his own words, earlier on in the second. Let's have a quick look at this, Davide, because he was really, really struggling with the balance by his own admission here. We saw the moment in turn 4, but there must be more to it than that. Across the line with Verstappen and down towards turn 1.
Yeah, because he's the second driver to say, oh, first corner was fine. He's the second driver to say the car was undrivable. He was complaining a lot with the general grip, but more of that with the front. Let's check turn 3, uphill, braking. We change the visual. I cannot see the inside curb, but he's struggling a bit with the grip on the rear. And then downhill to turn 4. Seems that here he's going to struggle a lot in the exit of this corner, and maybe missing also a bit the apex.
Yeah, so this is the error that we see. A little bit of a moment for Verstappen in the middle of the corner. That loses him some time. But over the radio, he also says he has problems down in turn 6. You highlighted it, DC. A lot of steering lock that he's been having all weekend through this middle section of the lap. He's losing a lot of time to the McLaren. He says understeer through turn 6, understeer through turn 7, through turn 9. I got a bit of everything, managing the front a little bit on the way in, but to be honest, kind of looks okay. Has to crank a lot of steering lock into it through the mid-corner of turn 10. I mean, is it horribly dramatic beyond the moment in turn 4, Davide? Not really, but it's not quite enough front end, is it, through the middle of the lap?
He's struggling a lot with the performance, and maybe the man that is struggling is also Mercedes. That seems that they were not very competitive. Russell and Antonelli, maybe they are going to be in trouble to get in Q3. Let's see together.
Yeah, well, they've got a bit of time now to try and fix it, figure out something in the garage, of course. We can play with tyre pressures, maybe a little bit of front wing for Max Verstappen to try to get the car back in terms of a nice balance. Let's see what they can do in the second phase of Q2.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Davide. We're going to resume in a couple of minutes' time, and we will have entertainment for those on the hill and for you watching at home, wherever you may be. Very welcome to the broadcast of the 11th qualifying hour of the year. And Isaac Hadjar finding himself with 8th position at the moment. In the drop zone as it stands, Albon, Behrman, Alonso, Bortoleto and Franco Colapinto.
Yeah, he's there with his eyes closed. He'd just be visualising whatever part of the lap he feels the opportunity lies. He's not taking a nap, not at this stage anyway. So the track's always going to be evolving. You're dealing with the variables that you cannot control, the wind, the other traffic. You just got to go with best intentions and hope that the lap unfolds the way you visualized it.
We often get the obligatory Colapinto shut eyes in Q2, don't we? We had it last time out in Canada. Yeah, I think it's very sleepy on a Saturday afternoon, or he's a real master of visualization. It worked well for him in Canada. He had a great qualifying day. Were you a visualizer, DC?
Occasionally, yes. Occasionally, I wouldn't say it was a big part of my prep. When I closed my eyes, I got scared, so I tended to keep them open.
Because Kimi Antonelli, he's big into this, isn't he? The young wave of drivers coming through, and all the new methods, and advanced psychology and training and everything else that goes on. But he sort of visualizes the outcome of the weekend before he turns up, and how it's going to go, and all the rest of it. I never massively bought into it, to be honest.
I can't believe that from the tone of your voice, mate. Good, strong,
maybe
positive
it's what I was
thinking,
missing.
Palmer.
Maybe it's what I was missing.
Thinking.
I'll visualise a great end to this qualifying hour. More than an hour at this rate.
Yeah, had a couple of interruptions. The fire has been extinguished, and we're ready for the hot laps on track. 5 minutes 42 seconds to go. Jolyon Palmer, David Coulthard alongside me, Alex Jakes, for this, the 11th qualifying hour of the year. And it's possible to overtake around here. We've seen some great battles, but it has been tough to pass this year in Formula One. Oscar Piastri later on will be chasing his 5th pole of the season. He is already a 5-time winner in F1 2025. And we're back underway. Green light at the end of the pit lane. Unsurprisingly, given it's a short lap, no one is herring out. But for Albon Behrman, Alonso Bortoleto and Colin Pinto, work to do and improvements required for Hadjar, Antonelli and Gasly, given the rate that we see this track ramp up.
So for reference, the cut-off in Q1 was a 105.3, where Lance Stroll was out and couldn't quite make it through. A 105.3 right now is slightly quicker than George Russell. So the track should get quicker than that. So many of those drivers are not safe. Even if Liam Lawson looks like he's done a great time at the moment, even Max wasn't very happy with his lap. It's not a fantastic lap from him. And with the track seemingly getting better through qualifying, if you look at the pace of the McLarens, they have improved on new tyres, as have the Ferraris now as well. So everyone's got to dig in. No one is safe when we finally get these final laps going, which looks like it's going to be any time now.
So Verstappen not happy with his feedback on the radio. He's had a chance to pause, to recalibrate. He was the driver that both McLaren operators were talking about at the end. Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri said the threat to McLaren, the threat for pole position and victory is the man who's closest to them in the World Championship. Max Verstappen has an amazing record around here. Can he deliver that to getting cleanly through to the top 10 shootout? He's on pole here last year by 0.4 of a second. As we wait, we hold the cars, and now we send them into the fast lane. Synchronized stuff for the pit lane. Everyone having to wait their turn. And Gabriel Bortoleto chasing a career milestone. He's looking for a lap that takes him through into Q3 for the first time today.
So all the teams have been sitting there thinking what is going to be the optimum time to go, and they've all decided at 4 minutes on the dot we're going to release our cars, and that's what this does. An absolute bunch up, but I'm sure they factored in 4 minutes is plenty of time for everyone to get around and get what should be one flying lap now to make sure you're through into Q3.
Nonetheless, you do feel slightly at the mercy of the cars in front, of course, because there is no, it's a long pit lane exit. You've just got to sit there patiently, waiting for them to decide to go, contemplating the lap that lies ahead.
And in a world where tyre prep is significant and not that easy on a short circuit as well, sitting in the pit lane for 60 seconds now is not ideal either. Everything's so fine-tuned. The drivers can see the tyre temps on their way around. They know what they've got to do to get the energy into those soft tyres, to get them fired up at the start of the lap for the big braking zones.
Yeah, just to build on that, of course they factor in how the drivers do the prep lap, but no point through free practice do they sit there in the pit lane for 30 seconds. You know, they may well try and let's say simulate that by doing an even slower outlap, so the tyre temperatures are more in line with what they would be seeing right now. But yeah, you've just got to think on your feet, use the information that's transmitted to the cockpit, and make sure that you're as prepped as possible when you launch the lap.
And this is on board with Gabriel Bortoleto, the reigning Formula 2 champion, is trying to reach Q3 for the first time. His teammate has struggled with the one-lap pace so far this year, but he scored 20 points in the race format. Every opportunity to convert into points Hulkenberg has taken, and also trying to return to the final part of qualifying for the first time since round 3 is Ollie Bearman. British driver is currently attacking turn 4.
Yeah, absolutely on the limit of the blue painted concrete, which is exactly where he needs to be. And you see the black lines that have been laid through the exit of both the high-speed corners by the Drift brothers that have been entertaining the crowd. Nicely keeping that rubber offline, and that slower car there keeping well out of the way of Bearman as he launches it down into the final corner.
Looking for an improvement on Pierre Gasly. That's the aim. He does get that. He goes ahead of Russell, Antonelli and Gasly and climbs to 8th position. Gabriel Bortoleto, what a time that is for the man chasing a first appearance in the top 10 shootout. Good enough for P3.
My ambitions for him might not have been lofty enough today. What a pace.
Yeah, that is an impressive lap any way you cut it.
Won here in Formula 2 last year, but he has been the lead Sauber driver all the way through the weekend. His effort only 1/100th of a second behind what Max Verstappen has just done to go into 3rd position. Kimi Antonelli is now in the drop zone. George Russell is at risk again for the 2nd session in a row. They're the 2 cars that we're following at the moment. Pfizer cam for Antonelli.
Both Mercedes tidily through the first sector. It's a decent job from the 2. They're almost purple, actually, in that first part. So, Antonelli clean as well through turn 6, straight into turn 7, the second of these lefts. And now there's a reasonable run, flat out, over the crest. Hope you don't find someone going slowly over here, but there's 10 seconds left at the end of the session. So everyone is on a last flyer, and it's working for them.
Lawson went up to 7th, Alonso went up to 8th. Antonelli now replaces the 2-time world champion. In P8 at the moment, Russell nose cam around the final corner on the racetrack, and Russell posts himself in the top 5 behind Bortoleto. It's Hadjar who finds himself in the drop zone along with Bearman. Hadjar's done, Bearman is done. Gasly is still fighting to try and find his place in the top 10, and he's on a really good lap at the moment.
He was 4th in Q1. Gasly has pace today in the Alpine. Colapinto's not far away either, so Antonelli and Alonso are not safe in 9th and 10th.
All down to the final few meters of the racetrack. Pierre Gasly to the line to 6th position to eliminate Fernando Alonso. Now Antonelli's at risk. Colapinto trying to get to Q3 for the first time with Alpine, and he falls short at the end despite a personal best, and Alex Albon can climb only to 12th. Antonelli gets through, along with Lawson, Hamilton, Russell, Gasly. Bortoleto, for the first time in his Formula 1 career, will make the top 10 shootout for pole, and he'll contest it with Verstappen, Leclerc, and once again it's the McLarens who are the top 2, separated again by about 1/10 and a half, with Norris ahead of Piastri. Alonso, Albon, Hadjar, Colapinto and Bearman are out.
This is great stuff from Norris, though, every time, just confidently keeping it together. So, given it's been by a little bit of a margin, I wonder if that takes a bit of pressure off him for what we've seen in final parts of qualifying at other Grand Prix, where he has been susceptible to making a mistake. I wonder if that gap to Piastri is just enough to make him go, just cruise to a pole position, if there ever is such a thing, Julian. It's cruising to pole.
Yeah, I don't see it. It never worked for me, but you know, the logic is there, and we've seen it. Monaco was one where he looked like he had the advantage over Oscar through the weekend, and then it manufactured itself in Q3 as well with their 2 flying laps at the end, and Lando got the pole. But we've also seen other weekends where Oscar built up, wasn't there, and then Q3, bam, he comes alive, and he'll put the frighteners on after the first run of Q3. So Lando will be well aware of what Oscar is still capable of, and this 1/10 margin that he's holding over him, it's a fragile one. It's enough for the moment, and it's the consistency he's doing it is good, but Oscar is capable of finding that last little bit at the death still.
Message from race control is the turn 2 incident involving Norris and Leclerc has been noted, only noted, for impeding. We'll bring you an update on that if we get any more on it from race control. First, though, let's get some analysis for the best lap that Gabriel Bortoleto was put together in Formula One with Alex and Devon.
Brilliant lap from Gabriel Bortoleto. The Sauber with the new floor on it this weekend has yielded a first Q3 appearance of the year for him. And it's a short track here, but it must have been a special lap from Bortoleto, who finds himself only 4/10 away from the pace. Shall we have a look at it?
I'm honest, it was impressive because in the middle sector it was even faster than Verstappen. Impressive drive, impressive car, because it seems that everything comes easy for him. Now the visual is not perfect for us to see. Perfect spot on with the line at the exit of the main straight, and now maximum speed up to the hill, and now brake for the turn 3.
So sometimes we ask ourselves, when a driver puts together a great lap like that, they go hunting for a toe around here, but not so for Bortoleto. Neat and tidy, down through, finds himself only 4/10 away from the pace. Shall we have a look at it?
I'm honest,
Well done, you have made it to your first Q3.
Let's go. I hope first of many. Let's go, guys. Good job.
On the line and to bring more speed, and look the steering wheel. How perfect is it, using all the line with no correction at the exit? Seems that the exit where he was flat out with the throttle was easy for him to drive the steering wheel. Well done.
Yeah, it looks unspectacular, but what it is neat and tidy, carrying the speed. He's put the Kick Sauber up into 5th position in Q2 and then through to the final phase of qualifying. A very special lap for the Formula 2 champion, young Brazilian, up into the last phase of quali.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Davide. Brilliant lap from Gabriel Bortoleto. A graduate from F2 to F1 has booked his place in the top 10 shootout. And we've had a quick review in the gallery at the impeding incident. I don't think there's going to be any further investigation between Norris and Leclerc for the incident at turn 2.
Doesn't look like there should be. Bortoleto having an absolute flyer. Let's have a look at Leclerc and Norris then. So that's Norris ahead. That's not impeding.
It was tight, but no further investigation pops up on our screen. But we would like to show you everything we can.
Why is that?
That was tight. Tight, come on, guys.
Even with my on the straight.
Yeah, exactly. Even with my aging eyes, I tell you what, a blind man would be able to see that that wasn't tight. The stewards are obviously a little bit bored today, having to make up things.
Okay, the racing drivers didn't like the word tight there. We'll note that down for the British Grand Prix next week. No further investigation. We have our top 10 set. It includes Gabriel Bortoleto for the first time. It includes Liam Lawson ahead of his teammate for the first time in a while as well. 7-1 down in the head-to-head. And so he's out-qualified Hadjar for only the second time. Liam Lawson, who, given the stage of the year that we're at, there's been plenty of chat about George Russell's contract, maybe Max Verstappen making a move to Mercedes, but for Lawson, he is in the fight for his future part of the season. Bortoleto impressing Matteo Binotto. The highest he's ever started in Formula One, that P12. He has been improving ever since they brought that new floor at the Spanish Grand Prix. That car has taken a step forward, and their highly rated rookie is having a standout performance. Now, can he deliver it and provide something very, very special for the team? We have seen a couple of times this year. He goes all in for that lap time. He's looking for one of those 99.9% laps, but it's been a great weekend so far for the boy from Brazil. Of course, now all eyes as well on the battle for pole position. Lando Norris has had all the pace, but can he come away with the first slot on the grid? The Austrian Grand Prix. He's never taken pole around here, and he has never won this race before.
Well, it's his to lose. He's stamped his mark on every single lap that he's done in every session. So very difficult to see anything other than a mistake getting in the way of this shootout between the two McLarens. I just don't see the others being able to pull a lap. You know, it's a question of battle for the third, but who of the two McLarens is going to end up with pole? It's definitely advantage Norris.
Yeah, I thought Verstappen might be able to get himself in the mix here, but he is not finding it that easy. Went for another set of tyres at the end of that session, still couldn't get within 0.3 of Norris out front. So it does look like Norris v Piastri, and certainly, in a way, there's more pressure, though, on Lando at this point, because he's been the quickest every single time. It is his to lose, but he's obviously in a good rhythm. He knows this place. He really likes this circuit. He's had some standout results, including his first ever podium here in Formula One. This has got to be a Norris pole coming up. He's got 2 attempts to do it, 2 sets of tyres to put it together. But we know that Piastri, when it comes down to the meaty times, is super, super good.
This is the pressure session. The green light is on at the end of the pit lane. Track temperature is at 47. The air temperature is at 28. And Lando Norris trying to convert all of the pace into pole position. Piastri trying to out-qualify him for the 7th time this season. It's only 4 across the entirety of 2024. And the others hoping that there's anything to fight for by the time the McLarens are done.
Been a few other great results so far today that are kind of locked in almost. Lawson up in the top 10. He's beaten Hadjar. Hadjar had a scruffy first sector at the end of his Q2 lap and hasn't got the most out of the RB car this weekend. It's Lawson that's up in the top 10 and he's primed and ready to go. Also Pierre Gasly driving the wheels off the Alpine. It's been a much better weekend for their man, him. And Gasly will be hoping not only now he's got into top 10, but get himself well in amongst the middle of this thicket.
The driver who had the 4th position start on the grid back in Bahrain. And Gabriel Bortoleto looking on, taking part in the full qualifying hour for the first time in his Formula One career. A driver who had a breakthrough, only had 2 wins in the Formula 2 Championship last year. One that he converted after the pole sitter stalled here in Austria, and the other one where he went from the very back of the grid to win, 22nd to 1st in Monza. It was not, and it is never, a dull watch when it comes to a champion claiming that 2nd tier title. And he also knows he's in the part of the season where when you've got a 1-year contract, it's time to perform, and he is delivering at one of his better racetracks. That applies Lando Norris as well. There's the man, desperate to stop him. The championship leader chasing pole position number 5 in his Formula One career.
Well, he's obviously very comfortable with having those blankets off early, letting the heat dissipate from the surface, but crucially getting a little bit of pressure droppage as well, which may well just make the difference. I didn't see that earlier in the session, such an obvious removal of the tyre blankets, so maybe that is their final little tweak, their final attempt to see if it can give him the car that can overcome his teammates' performance.
Yeah, the pressure's dropped. You get a little bit more contact patch with the asphalt, a little bit more grip is the idea. Plenty of teams were doing. Ferrari looked like they were out with the blankets off, so it's not necessarily about firing up the tyres sometimes, it's just about getting them in the right window. And sometimes you just want to make sure that window's not overheating them too early in the lap as well. Norris trundling out the end of the pit lane. So he is behind Piastri in this first effort. Piastri's already out. Still more drivers lining up behind Lando.
Yeah, the slow crawl from the pit lane. This was all done at the pass in the final corners. Race control thought that was dangerous. The FIA deemed that to be dangerous, and the drivers wanted a solution, so they crawl slowly out, and then one of the shorter circuits in terms of distance, but the lowest lap time of the year. We're barely over a minute when it comes to pole position around this place. And are we going to see Lando Norris return to pole position for the 3rd time this year? Is Oscar Piastri going to extend his run to 5 poles? And Max Verstappen find a lap from nowhere? Where will Bortoleto start for the first time in the top 10? And a word for Pierre Gasly. 6 times now he's reached Q3 with the team that is currently 10th in the Constructors' Championship.
Yeah, he's got form.
Whoa. Okay.
Trying to work out which one that was for. There's Lawson coming out of the garage further up. A couple of cars trying to get in Max's way coming out, but they don't. Gasly's got form, but he's not made the most of them, has he, at the start of the races? Here comes Piastri then. First attempt at pole position for the McLarens. Piastri.
Whoa. Okay.
Out kink through turn 2, DRS open, and the big stamp on the brakes at turn 3.
Left-hand side of your screen, Lando Norris going through the same corner. It looks slightly more glued to the road. It looks slightly more dialed in.
First sector's not great for Piastri. He's down on what he's done before, and he's more than a tenth down on Norris.
And that is not a lot of racetrack at all when it comes to corners. This is where Lando Norris had the error in FP3. Not this time. Piastri is going through the corner where he was wide in Q1. No such trouble in Q3.
Lando's still fighting the car through the apex of 3. It's a difficult corner as Oscar now sweeps through the middle sector and does a very tidy effort through there. So Piastri now already coming to the final couple of corners.
It is such a rapid racetrack. 2 corners to go for the championship leader. Antonelli is ahead of Gasly, but it's McLaren versus McLaren, and there's a brush of the gravel through turn 9. Through turn 10 goes Piastri. It's a 104.5 to beat. He immediately peels from the racing line. You go on board with Lando Norris, who's a 10th up on his teammate. Fastest sector 1 and 2 and 3, and fastest overall provisional pole for Lando Norris.
That is a very tidy, clean lap from Norris, and again he's got that margin to his teammate. This one is bigger than what it has been previously. That wasn't the best Oscar Piastri lap we've seen.
Verstappen chasing 6 pole positions around here in a row, but he's 0.6 of a second off the pace. Charles Leclerc, can he keep it on the road because it was rapid? At the end of the second sector, it was good enough to split the McLarens.
And Russell's going really quickly as well. George Russell was very decent through the first sector. Now we pick him up coming through the middle part, and the time is going away, but still he's only 3.5 tenths down.
That was the question for Charles Leclerc. He was a 1/10.5 back at the end of the second sector. He only lost 0.07 more, and he's ahead of Oscar Piastri. Russell aiming to beat his old teammate Lewis Hamilton. Where can he go across the line? He's behind. And the time fell away for the Mercedes man, our most recent Grand Prix winner, P5.
Yeah, Russell was right with Norris through the first few corners. The slower stuff, we know the Mercedes is good in that. That's how he managed to claim pole and the win in Canada. But as soon as the corners got faster, so George fell back, and actually half a second away is a pretty big gap around this circuit. But it's closer with some of the others. With the Ferraris are looking good, aren't they? Leclerc splitting the McLarens.
And Lando, that might not.
Russell aiming to beat his old teammate Lewis
And Lando, that might not have felt like a great lap, but it was a good lap.
On the very limit, like we've seen sometimes this year in Q3 for Lando Norris, but it's put him ahead of Charles Leclerc by 0.2 of a second, and his rival for the title by 2.86 on the timing page.
I love that Will Joseph is preempting. The corners got faster, so George fell back, and actually half a second away is a pretty big gap around this circuit. But it's closer with some of the others. With the Ferraris are looking good, aren't they? Leclerc splitting the McLarens.
And Lando, that might not. And Lando, that might not have felt like a great lap, but it was a good lap.
On the very limit, like we've seen sometimes this year in Q3 for Lando Norris, but it's put him ahead of Charles Leclerc by 0.2 of a second, and his rival for the title by 2.86 on the timing page.
I love that Will Joseph is preempting.
I can't see, can you tell me?
It's steer clear now.
I can't see, can you tell me?
It's steer clear now.
been as low as 7th. The rest of the time, that was back in Bahrain. The rest of the time, he has been inside the top 4.
It's a better first sector for Verstappen, but he's still missing a full 10th compared to Norris in provisional pole. So, can he manage to find something around the rest of the lap? The first sector is so short, he's washing slightly wide through turn 4. Russell steams in a belter of a first sector, and Leclerc goes even quicker in the Ferrari.
So it's a great first sector for George Russell. It's a great first sector for Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris is under pressure. The yellow flag is out momentarily. 20 seconds to go. Norris does the fastest first sector of anyone so far as Verstappen brings it to the end of the lap.
He's backed off. Yeah. He was on a really decent lap there and he's backed off it. He's going to be able to go again because he's just going to get it in before the checkered flag, but presumably he's got no fuel in the car to go for it again.
Russell is going quickly. Charles Leclerc is in the fight for pole position. Russell, the winner here last year, over the line, and he can't improve again. The time fails in the final few corners. Charles Leclerc trying to make Lando Norris answer. It's a rapid lap so far. The time disappears for Leclerc at the end. Fastest in Sector 1, Sector 2. The expectation was that Norris would be in this position, and Lando Norris converts to pole position.
And Oscar Piastri cannot respond. He's not in the fight. He's done there in 3rd position. Hamilton cannot quite pit the second McLaren down another place, but Piastri must have made the mistake and potentially was the cause of the yellow flag earlier on in the lap. So that means Leclerc will stay second. What a job from him, but there's half a second between the top 2. To Max, we were watching him, he just backed out of it.
Round the final corner we go with Gabriel Bortoleto, and Bortoleto gets ahead of Antonelli, and his first start inside the top 10 will be P8 for the Brazilian driver. 1.1 seconds away from a scorching pace set by Lando Norris. The 12th time in his Formula 1 career, he'll start from the very front of the order. His first pole in Austria, and after the dejection of Canada, a fine way to respond. 2 weeks later, he's the man to beat when the lights go out in Austria.
Pretty emphatic this weekend. Didn't do the first hour of practice, but he's looked fast.
Oh! Pierre Gasly chasing it to the end, pirouetting rounds, and still they all avoid the wall, and still we're not sure how.
That's the steamiest run yet through the gravel for Gasly, and yet everyone keeps, what's that, 720, a 1080 for Gasly, and then he gets going. The speed they're running through, they can just turn and turn and turn. Let's see, I want to see what happened to Max though, because so is this the end of his lap where he's not sure if he can go again? Because he bailed out of it already, but he was only 1/10 down on Norris's previous best when he did so.
So lights were green.
Is he just trying to give Bortoleto a slipstream?
He did so. Bortoleto wasn't that far away from him in the end. And it's Norris, Leclerc, Piastri, Hamilton, Russell, Liam Lawson getting his best of the year, and the yellow flag coming out. The timing of that crucial. And Piastri had yellow flags in the last corner as he started his last lap, so he was only able to complete one run under green flag conditions. Lando Norris, though, it was going to take some beating him today. He always looked likely to be in pole.
Yeah, fantastic response from Norris. I'm still slightly baffled about Verstappen, though. Did he see a yellow flag or something? Because he should have been on the front row with the pace that he was showing on that lap. New tyres at the end, starting to find the pace, and then backed out of it. And he starts only 7th. So a massive cost there for Verstappen in all of this. Brilliant effort from Charles Leclerc, getting himself up onto the front row. The half a second gap won't be pretty for anyone chasing Norris, but at least Leclerc has the clean view ahead of him as he starts tomorrow. Could dream of leading the race.
Well, Piastri just gathering his thoughts, and we believe that both Piastri and Verstappen had to slow for yellow flags, which interrupted the end of qualifying. DC is speaking to the top 3.
Lando Norris What a lap on a circuit where we expect it to be super tight. Half a second. You put us in the cockpit. Where did that come from?
Oh, it was a good lap, that's for sure. I guess just little bit by little bit, you know, I feel even like my Q3 1-1 was good, but I knew there was a few places where if I just got it right, I could get still quite a bit more time, and I did exactly that. So I did what I planned to do, and when I plan to do something and it goes right, it normally goes very, very well. So yeah, very happy. A good day, and it's been a good weekend for me so far, so hopefully we can keep it up.
Yeah, so you didn't do the first practice session. You've been top of the times every time you've done a lap around this track. I feel I'm a little bit more impressed and excited by that lap than you are. Is this just a new steely focus for this weekend?
I don't know. I mean, still, you know, I'm still very happy, and you know, it's a long season. So I savor this moment. I still, you know, especially because this has been some of my tougher moments have been the qualies. So to put in a lap like today, to have the performance throughout this weekend like I had was pleasing for myself, you know. But I'm excited. It's a long race tomorrow. It's just a long season, and I'm very happy with today. But I want to prove it to myself over and over again, and hopefully this is just the beginning of it.
Okay, well, congratulations. I think that was an awesome lap.
Thank you so much. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you. Charles, the Tifosi are singing out after what was an average qualifying in Canada. Here we are, right there, front row, second place. You must be very happy.
Yeah, I'm very pleased. I mean, it's been a long time since I think it was Monaco the last time we started on the front row, and it's been a difficult season overall. But the team have kept pushing. We've brought some new parts this weekend, which for sure made a difference, because if you look at the gaps, everybody's super close. So it's also thanks to the team. But I'm very happy with the lap overall. Yeah, it's a good start to the weekend. Now we know that we have a better car normally in the race than we do in qualifying. So I hope that we can put a bit more pressure on the McLaren tomorrow.
Well, you're obviously happy with that performance. You're right there with all your other competitors, but a half a second gap to Lando. Can you imagine that lap?
I mean, not with our car yet, but we are going to work towards that. But it's not to minimize Lando's job, obviously. I mean, he must have done an incredible lap. I haven't seen it because I just got out the car, but I'll definitely look at it. Congrats to him. He deserves it. And tomorrow we'll try and bring him a tough time.
Okay. Congratulations in second place.
Thank you.
Now, Oscar, you're a man that doesn't really show his emotions, but when I saw you get out of the car, I sensed a sort of disappointment in your walk. Was there something on that lap that you did manage to pull together, or is it just the size of the gap to Lando that's the disappointment?
It was the fact I didn't get to start it. That was the problem. I had Gasly spin at the last corner, so I didn't even open my second lap. And you know, Lando's been very quick all weekend, so it would have been a tough challenge. But I think we easily had enough pace in the car this weekend to be on the front row. So always a shame when you don't even get the chance. But we can still have a good race from there. And sometimes it's just not your day. Yeah,
well, long game, of course, the race. That's where the points are. Good position to start. DRS is very effective here, as we've seen in the other formulas, so still an opportunity tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. I think our pace this weekend has looked very strong. I think, you know, the Ferrari pace looked good as well, which was a bit of a surprise, but I think we've still got some opportunities tomorrow, so I'm not planning on finishing third, that's for sure.
Okay, good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks to David Coulthard for wandering from the commentary box down to Parc Fermé, and confirmation there that Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri had their final efforts in the qualifying session interrupted by that yellow flag for the spinning Pierre Gasly.
That makes a lot more sense now, and that is really why the gap from Lando to the rest is that big. I think it's benefited Ferrari certainly, because Oscar should have been able to find a bit more pace. He didn't put in the cleanest first lap of Q3. Max was on used tyres for the first lap and was finding a lot more pace as well and had to back out of it. So at either end, Max couldn't finish the lap, Oscar couldn't start the lap, and you've lost two pole position contenders before the final laps of Q3 have even begun. But that's the jeopardy of sometimes waiting for the last moment. If you don't put in the banker lap, you are left with a little bit of luck that can go against you. And that's what's happened really for Oscar and Max.
Well, it's Lando Norris on pole position ahead of Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri. Lewis Hamilton gets his best start for Ferrari. Then it's Russell, Lawson, Verstappen, Bortoleto, Antonelli and Pierre Gasly. We'll see you tomorrow for the Grand Prix. Antonelli and Pierre Gasly. We'll see you tomorrow for the Grand Prix.